So what I've done is I've taken the character list that I use to decide which character I'm going to do a video on next, and added the characters from Glory Days to it so I can start mixing their introductions in. But before I get to the point where I start introducing any of the Glory Days characters, I want to kind of explain something that you're going to see when we're doing that. And that is that Glory Days does not use standard fantasy races or ancestries or lineages or however you want to describe them. The species that occupy the world of Glory Days are all animals or animalistic to some degree. Each species in Glory Days is a relative to a wild animal. And so basically what you have is something very similar to how humans are the one primates that are viewed as characters with sapience and conversation and adventure, stuff like that, whereas chimpanzees and apes and monkeys and stuff like that, lemurs, are all primates, but they're not human, and therefore they don't occupy the same place in the world that humans occupy. In that same way, a lot of other animals have variants like that in the world of Glory Days. Two of the main characters are a bear and a ferret, for instance. Now, they're not called that. They're called Arth and Gwenki, respectively, which comes from Irish. But they're specific types. The ferrets are sapient and characters and running around having adventures, stuff like that, whereas weasels and ermines and other relatives of them are not. They're wild animals. Arth are essentially grizzly bears, and that specific type of bear is sapient and walking around and talking and stuff like that. But other types of bears, such as sun bears and brown bears and black bears, are not. In fact, there's not even really any humans. There are characters that are essentially presented as human. Rigel is one of the main characters, and Lord Harrow, in fact, are both human equivalent, but they're part of a species called the Din, and the Din, you're going to notice as the story progresses, have some characteristics that are not standard for humans, especially not humans in a fantasy setting. Occasionally you'll see descriptions that imply that they have a bit of fur to them, and that's not just hair on the head and maybe facial hair, but that there is actually some amount of a fur coat going on with them. You're going to notice that they have some traits, physical and societal, that just don't really line up with humans. And so throughout the story, there aren't really any of the species that we're used to seeing in a fantasy setting, not even really humans, although the Din are very close to being humanoid. So when I'm doing the character introductions and I'm describing them, I'm going to end up describing the species that they are as well. And that's going to be a key part of kind of understanding who they are in the world and what types of roles they play and why they view things the way that they do and how society views them. There are other species in the world that are sapient and could be characters and are actually characters that the party will encounter, but that aren't main characters and therefore won't come up in the character introductions. And so I encourage you to check out when Glory Days is available, to check it out and keep an eye out for other types of entities that you see throughout the story. Anyway, I'll start doing character introductions again next week, Monday, Wednesday, and I will be rolling dice on a chart to see which characters I do, and it might be Glory Days, it might be Tall Tales. They're about an even spread at this point. So thank you very much, and keep an eye out for more Glory Days content.